Sit back, relax, and welcome to Reading Hours. Today's book is Baseball by Ken Burns. Please let us know in the comments from where you are watching or if there is a book you want us to summarize in future. Prepare to embark on an epic journey through America's most enduring game as we delve into the monumental documentary series, Baseball by Ken Burns. More than just a chronicle of statistics and home runs, Burns's magnum opus, originally aired in 1994, is a sweeping narrative that intertwines the evolution of baseball with the very fabric of American history. It's a story of immigration, social change, racial struggles, labor disputes, and the persistent human need for heroes and a shared sense of community. Burns, renowned for his signature style of artfully weaving together archival photographs, vintage film footage, first-person accounts, and evocative music, transforms the game into a mirror reflecting the nation's triumphs and tribulations. He reveals how baseball, born in crowded cities but often romanticized as a pastoral ideal, has always been a paradox, democratic yet exclusionary, a source of national unity and a stage for profound inequalities. The series is not without its discussions and debates. Some critics have pointed to an East Coast bias or occasional historical inaccuracies in certain anecdotes, while others champion its unparalleled achievement in bringing the game's rich and often overlooked history to a broad audience. Yet, its impact is undeniable, shaping how generations understand baseball's cultural significance and preserving the voices of those who lived its history, particularly the often silenced narratives of the Negro Leagues. Through the eloquent narration and the poignant reflections of historians, writers, and players, Burns invites us to consider baseball not just as a sport, but as a mythology, a moral compass, and a testament to the American spirit. This summary will guide you through the 9 innings of this cinematic masterpiece, followed by the 10th inning update, exploring the stories, legends, and enduring lessons embedded within our national pastime. Get ready to step up to the plate and discover the profound depths of America's game. The narrative of baseball, as Ken Burns meticulously unfurls it in his seminal documentary series, begins not with the crack of a bat on a diamond, but in the dusty, uncertain origins of a nation still finding its footing. It is a story steeped in myth and memory, a search for the singular genesis of America's game that ultimately reveals a far more complex and organic evolution. For generations, the tale held that Abner Doubleday, a military man, single-handedly invented baseball in Cooperstown, New York in 1839. This neat, almost too perfect origin story, however, crumbles under scrutiny, a romanticized fabrication designed to imbue the sport with an unquestionable American lineage. The truth Burns reveals is far less tidy but infinitely richer. Baseball, in its earliest forms, was a constellation of bat and ball games akin to English rounders or town ball, played informally across the nascent republic in the early 19th century. These were local pastimes, often chaotic and uncodified, varying wildly from one village green to the next. The very notion of a game was fluid, rules often agreed upon on the spot, driven by the simple human impulse for play and competition. The transformation from these disparate, folk sport variations to something resembling modern baseball began in the bustling urban centers of the East Coast, particularly New York City. Here, amidst the burgeoning metropolis, amateur clubs started to form, driven by a desire for organization, refinement, and a more structured form of recreation. It was the New York Knickerbockers Baseball Club, founded in 1845, that emerged as a pivotal force in this standardization. Led by Alexander Cartwright, often hailed as the father of modern baseball, the Knickerbockers laid down a set of rules that would fundamentally shape the game. These included the 90-foot base paths, the 3 strikes to an out, and the concept of tagging runners rather than plugging them with a thrown ball. This wasn't an invention, but rather a crucial act of codification, a decisive step towards a shared understanding of the game. The very first recorded organized baseball game, played on June 19, 1846, between the Knickerbockers and the New York Nine at Elysian Fields in Hoboken, New Jersey, might have seen the Knickerbockers lose, but it marked a profound turning point. It was the moment when the scattered threads of a folk pastime began to weave into a recognizable sport, a collective enterprise with defined parameters. As the mid-19th century progressed, the game's popularity surged, fueled by its inherent appeal and the burgeoning spirit of American ingenuity and enterprise. Newspapers, recognizing the public's growing fascination, began to publish box scores and reports, and the first baseball writers emerged, chief among them Henry Chadwick. Chadwick, an English immigrant, was a tireless advocate for the game, a meticulous statistician, and a relentless innovator. He developed the fundamental scoring system, the batting average, and other metrics that would become integral to baseball's intellectual and analytical dimensions. His influence was immense, transforming a recreational pursuit into a subject of serious study and debate. He saw in baseball not just a game, but a moral crucible, a character-building exercise that embodied the best American ideals of fair play, teamwork, and individual excellence. Then came the seismic event that would inadvertently propel baseball into the national consciousness: the Civil War. Soldiers from both the Union and Confederate armies, seeking diversion from the grim realities of conflict, carried the game with them. Northern regiments, many of whom had already embraced the sport, played it in camps, demonstrating its rules and rhythms to their Southern counterparts. What was once a regional pastime began to spread across the country, a shared experience amidst a fractured nation. When the soldiers returned home, they brought baseball with them, effectively sowing the seeds of its widespread adoption. It became a unifying force, a common language in a land scarred by internal strife. The war, paradoxically, made baseball truly national. The post-Civil War era witnessed an explosion of baseball's popularity. Thousands of amateur and semi-professional teams sprang up, organized leagues emerged, and the thirst for competition grew insatiable. The game, still evolving, was a vibrant, often rowdy affair, reflecting the raw energy and nascent industrialism of the time. But with growing popularity came the inevitable pressures of commercialization and professionalization. Players, increasingly skilled and dedicated, began to demand compensation, challenging the genteel amateur ethos that had long prevailed. This shift from amateurism to professionalism was fraught with tension, as purists decried the erosion of the game's purity, while a new generation of players sought to make a living from their talent. The stage was set for the creation of the first true professional league, a development that would forever alter the landscape of American baseball. The dream of our game was rapidly transforming into our business. The blossoming of baseball in the post-Civil War era, fueled by its newfound national reach, quickly confronted the realities of a rapidly industrializing America. The amateur ideal, once the bedrock of the sport, began to crack under the weight of burgeoning popularity and the undeniable allure of making a living from one's athletic prowess. This tension between the gentleman's game and the emerging professional enterprise forms the core of baseball's second crucial historical period. Players, increasingly devoted to their craft, sought fair compensation, while club owners, seeing the immense potential for profit, sought to control their assets and maximize their returns. This clash of interests inevitably led to the birth of organized professional leagues, transforming baseball from a leisurely pursuit into a serious business. The first attempt at a professional league, the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, formed in 1871, proved to be short-lived and plagued by instability. It was a wild, untamed frontier of professional sports, rife with gambling, crooked games, and capricious owners. Teams folded quickly, players jumped from club to club, and the integrity of the game was constantly under threat. The desire for stability and order became paramount, and from this chaos emerged a visionary, albeit autocratic, figure, William Hulbert, the owner of the Chicago White Stockings. Hulbert, a shrewd and determined businessman, recognized that for baseball to truly flourish, it needed a stronger, more disciplined structure. He secretly met with other club owners, and in 1876 they formed the National League of Professional Baseball Clubs. The National League was a revolutionary creation, establishing a strict code of conduct for both players and owners. It introduced the concept of the reserve clause, a controversial provision that bound a player to his team indefinitely, effectively eliminating free agency and giving owners immense power. While fiercely debated and often resented by players, the reserve clause provided the stability that the nascent league desperately needed, preventing player migration and ensuring competitive balance. Gambling was strictly prohibited, and players were expected to uphold a certain moral standard both on and off the field. This was baseball's first concerted effort to establish itself as a legitimate, respectable enterprise, a cornerstone of American entertainment. The league's success led to the emergence of the game's first true superstars, figures who captured the public imagination and became legends in their own time. Among these early giants, none cast a longer shadow than Albert Goodwill Spaulding. A dominant pitcher in the National Association, Spaulding transitioned into a highly successful owner and executive with the Chicago White Stockings, but his true genius lay in his entrepreneurial vision. He created a sporting goods empire, manufacturing everything from baseballs and bats to uniforms, effectively commercializing the game's very tools. Spalding understood the power of promotion and marketing, even organizing a round-the-world baseball tour in 1888-89, showcasing the American game to a global audience and further cementing its national identity. He was a force of nature, driven by an unshakable belief in baseball's destiny as America's national pastime. Yet, his influence also extended to some of the game's darker turns, particularly his role in solidifying racial segregation. The late 19th century, while a period of immense growth for baseball, was also a deeply troubled one for American society, grappling with the legacy of slavery and the tightening grip of racial discrimination. As professional baseball established itself, a gentleman's agreement among owners began to take hold, systematically excluding black players from the burgeoning white leagues. Talented African American players, many of whom had played alongside whites in earlier, more informal settings, suddenly found the doors of opportunity slammed shut. Moses Fleetwood Walker, an educated catcher who played briefly in the major leagues in the 1880s, became a poignant symbol of this tragic turning point, a pioneer whose career was cut short by the rising tide of racism. The gentleman's agreement, fueled by prejudice and the desire to cater to a white audience, effectively created a segregated baseball universe, a shameful chapter in the game's history that would endure for decades. This era also saw the rise of iconic figures like Cap Anson, a brilliant but notoriously racist first baseman and manager. Anson, a towering presence on the field, actively refused to play against black teams and used his considerable influence to enforce the color line. His actions and those of other prominent white players and owners solidified a discriminatory system that would deny generations of black athletes the opportunity to showcase their talents on the sport's highest stage. Simultaneously, labor unrest began to simmer beneath the surface of the professional game. Players, chafing under the restrictive reserve clause and feeling exploited by powerful owners, sought to assert their rights. John Montgomery Ward, a brilliant pitcher and lawyer, became a leading voice in this burgeoning players' movement. He organized the Brotherhood of Professional Baseball Players, a nascent union, and in 1890 they launched their own league, the Players' League, in direct competition with the National League. This bold challenge, a testament to the players' growing awareness of their collective power, ultimately failed due to financial pressures and the owners' united front. Yet, it foreshadowed future battles for player rights and highlighted the ongoing struggle for control over the game's destiny. As the 19th century drew to a close, baseball was firmly entrenched as a national obsession, but it carried within it the seeds of both its greatest triumphs and its deepest societal flaws. As the 19th century transitioned into the 20th, baseball had firmly cemented its place in the American cultural landscape. Yet it was a game still grappling with its own identity and internal conflicts. The Players' League rebellion had failed, reinforcing the owner's grip through the oppressive reserve clause, but the underlying tensions remained. The National League, having emerged victorious from the League Wars, found itself challenged anew by a burgeoning rival, the American League. This period, often termed the dead ball era due to the comparatively low-scoring games and emphasis on pitching, speed, and strategic play rather than brute power, was characterized by the establishment of a lasting two-league major league system and the emergence of figures who would define baseball for generations. Ban Johnson, a charismatic and ambitious former sports writer, was the driving force behind the American League. He envisioned a league that was clean, honest, and accessible, free from the often unsavory reputation that clung to parts of the National League. Johnson aggressively pursued talented players, often luring them away from their National League contracts with higher salaries and promises of a more professional environment. This head-to-head competition, initially marked by fierce animosity and legal battles, ultimately proved beneficial for the game, forcing both leagues to improve their operations and compete for public affection. The Peace Agreement of 1903, which officially recognized both leagues as major leagues and established the World Series as a championship contest between their respective pennant winners, was a landmark moment. It created the structural foundation for modern professional baseball, a duality that has largely endured to this day. The inaugural World Series, won by the American League's Boston Americans over the National League's Pittsburgh Pirates, instantly captivated the nation, setting the stage for decades of autumnal drama. In this era of strategic baseball, where a single run could decide a game, pitchers were kings. Figures like Christy Mathewson of the New York Giants embodied the era's ideal of the cerebral, clean-cut hero. Known for his devastating fadeaway, a screwball, and impeccable control, Mathewson was not just a pitching ace but also a gentlemanly figure, a role model off the field. His duels with other pitching legends, such as Walter Johnson of the Washington Senators, were legendary showcases of skill and endurance. Batters, conversely, focused on small ball bunts, hit and run plays, and stolen bases to manufacture runs. The home run was a rarity, a thrilling exception rather than an expectation. This style of play, while less explosive than later eras, demanded a different kind of finesse and strategic acumen, highlighting the intricacies of the game. But the dead ball era also produced a player whose name would become synonymous with ruthless competitiveness and a complex, often dark, personality, Ty Cobb. Playing for the Detroit Tigers, Cobb was a force of nature, a terrifying combination of speed, aggression, and unparalleled batting skill. He played with a singular, ferocious intensity, spiking opponents, brawling with fans, and dominating the game with a singular will to win. Cobb was a master of the inner game, using intimidation and psychological warfare as much as his physical gifts. His legendary .367 career batting average stands as a testament to his hitting prowess, but his legacy is inextricably linked to his controversial character. He was often described as a pariah, a man consumed by anger and suspicion, and stories of his racism and violent temper abound. Burns delves into the complexities of Cobb, presenting him not just as a statistical marvel, but as a deeply flawed human being, a reflection of some of the darker currents within American society itself. He was a symbol of unchecked individualism, a stark contrast to the team-oriented ideals often espoused by the game. The dead ball era was also marked by the construction of iconic ballparks, cathedrals of the game that became beloved landmarks in their respective cities. Fenway Park in Boston and Wrigley Field in Chicago, built during this period, exemplified the intimate, urban ballparks that brought fans close to the action. These parks, with their idiosyncratic dimensions and distinct personalities, became integral to the identity of their teams and the experience of attending a game. They were more than just venues. They were sanctuaries where communities gathered, shared emotions, and witnessed history unfold. As the second decade of the 20th century drew to a close, baseball's popularity reached unprecedented heights. It was the undisputed national pastime, deeply woven into the fabric of everyday life. But beneath the surface of this golden age, a sinister shadow was beginning to gather. The gambling scandals that had plagued baseball in its earliest professional years had never fully disappeared, and the immense sums of money now involved in the game made it an irresistible target for fixers. The stage was being set for a scandal that would rock the sport to its core, shatter public trust, and forever taint the image of some of its biggest stars. The innocence of the dead ball era was about to be brutally shattered, paving the way for a new kind of game and a new kind of hero. The roar of the 20s was just around the corner, and with it, a transformation that no one could have fully foreseen. The seemingly unassailable popularity of baseball at the close of the dead ball era was dealt a devastating blow by the Black Sox scandal of 1919, an event that ripped through the heart of the national pastime and exposed a dark underbelly of greed and corruption. This pivotal moment, a betrayal of the public's trust, threatened to unravel the very foundation of the game, yet paradoxically, it also cleared the path for the emergence of a new, electrifying brand of baseball and the rise of its greatest icon. The scandal centered on the Chicago White Sox, a team widely considered the best in baseball, who were heavily favored to win the 1919 World Series against the underdog Cincinnati Reds. However, 8 members of the White Sox, including the legendary shoeless Joe Jackson, conspired with gamblers to intentionally lose games in exchange for money. The motivations were complex, underpaid by their notoriously stingy owner, Charles Comiskey, and resentful of their treatment. Some players succumbed to temptation. The fix slowly unraveled, whispers growing into accusations and eventually a grand jury indictment. The ensuing trial, while ultimately resulting in the players' acquittal on technicalities, did little to restore their reputations or the public's faith. The fallout was immense. Baseball was reeling, its integrity compromised, its future uncertain. Into this crisis stepped Kennesaw Mountain Landis, a stern federal judge appointed as the first commissioner of baseball. Landis, an imposing figure known for his unyielding rectitude, was given absolute power to clean up the game. His immediate and decisive action was to ban the 8 Black Sox players from baseball for life, despite their acquittal in court and the lingering questions about degrees of guilt, particularly for Jackson, whose involvement was more nuanced. Landis's decree: no player who throws a game, no player who undertakes or promises to throw a game, No player who sits in a conference with a bunch of crooked players and gamblers where the ways and means of throwing games are discussed, and does not promptly tell his club about it, will ever play professional baseball, sent an unambiguous message. It was a draconian measure, but it served its purpose. It restored public confidence, establishing that no one, not even the game's biggest stars, was above the law of baseball. As baseball grappled with its moral crisis, a new force was emerging, one that would redefine the game and captivate the nation: Babe Ruth. Ruth, originally a dominant left-handed pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, was traded to the New York Yankees in 1920 in a move that would famously become known as the Curse of the Bambino. The trade was a turning point for both franchises and for baseball itself. In New York, Ruth transitioned primarily to an outfielder, and his prodigious home run hitting ushered in the live ball era. The game, once dominated by pitching and strategic small ball, was transformed by Ruth's titanic swings and soaring blasts. He wasn't just hitting home runs, he was hitting them further and more frequently than anyone had ever dreamed possible. Babe Ruth was more than just an athlete, he was a cultural phenomenon. In the Roaring '20s, a decade of unprecedented prosperity and social change, Ruth embodied the spirit of exuberance, extravagance, and larger-than-life heroes. He was charismatic, boisterous, and immensely popular, a figure who transcended the game itself. His playful demeanor, prodigious appetites, and record-shattering feats captivated the American public, providing a much-needed diversion from the anxieties left by the World War and the lingering shadow of the Black Sox scandal. He single-handedly brought fans back to the ballparks, his home runs electrifying crowds and proving that baseball could be exciting and spectacular. His rivalry with opposing pitchers, his legendary called shot in the World Series, and his undeniable magnetism made him the most famous person in America, arguably the world. The Yankees, with Ruth as their centerpiece, became a dynasty, a symbol of professional excellence and relentless winning. They built a magnificent new stadium, Yankee Stadium, famously dubbed the house that Ruth built, a testament to his immense drawing power. The rivalry with the crosstown New York Giants and later other National League powerhouses added another layer of intrigue and drama to the burgeoning baseball landscape. Ruth, alongside his quiet and dignified teammate Lou Gehrig, formed an iconic pairing, a contrast in personalities that nonetheless contributed to the Yankees' unparalleled success. Gehrig, the Iron Horse, known for his incredible durability and consistent performance, provided a steady counterpoint to Ruth's flamboyant style. As the 1920s drew to a close, baseball was once again thriving, having successfully navigated the treacherous waters of the Black Sox scandal. The game was infused with a new energy, a new spectacle, largely thanks to the transformative power of Babe Ruth. His legacy was not just in his staggering statistics, but in his ability to rekindle America's love affair with the sport. He proved that baseball could be a vehicle for escapism, a source of collective joy, and a stage for individual brilliance. But the boom years were about to give way to a far more challenging era, one that would test the resilience of the nation and its favorite pastime. The Great Depression loomed, and baseball, like everything else, would have to find a way to endure. The vibrant exuberance of the Roaring Twenties and the era of Babe Ruth's unparalleled dominance gave way to the crushing reality of the Great Depression, a period that tested the very resilience of the American spirit and, by extension, its national pastime. Yet, even as unemployment soared and poverty gripped the nation, baseball managed not only to survive, but in many ways to offer a vital escape and a powerful symbol of enduring hope. The game, now firmly established as a cornerstone of American culture, had to adapt to the economic hardships, finding new ways to draw fans and sustain its operations. Ballparks once filled with booming crowds saw attendance figures dwindle. Teams scrambled to innovate, offering promotions, lowering ticket prices, and organizing special events to entice cash-strapped fans. The spirit of the game, however, remained indomitable. For many Americans, a day at the ballpark, even if it meant sacrificing a meal or other necessities, was a cherished respite from the grim realities of their lives. The heroes on the field provided a sense of shared purpose and a much-needed distraction, a testament to the power of sport as a collective emotional outlet. Amidst the widespread despair, new stars emerged, embodying different facets of the American character. Lou Gehrig, the dignified iron horse of the New York Yankees, continued his remarkable streak of consecutive games played, a symbol of unwavering reliability and quiet strength in an unreliable world. His tragic battle with ALS, a disease that would eventually bear his name, and his poignant luckiest man on the face of the earth farewell speech in 1939 became one of baseball's most enduring and heartbreaking moments, transcending the game to touch the hearts of millions. Elsewhere, the fiery talent of Joe DiMaggio, Gehrig's successor as the Yankees' iconic center fielder, began to emerge. The Yankee Clipper, with his effortless grace and stoic demeanor, epitomized a new kind of hero, cool, collected, and relentlessly consistent. His legendary 56-game hitting streak in 1941, on the eve of America's entry into World War II, became a national obsession, a beacon of sustained excellence in a world on the brink. But the 1930s also saw the flourishing of a parallel universe of baseball, born out of the painful reality of racial segregation, the Negro Leagues. Despite the immense talent of black ballplayers, the gentleman's agreement that had barred them from the major leagues remained firmly in place. Undeterred, these athletes forged their own vibrant, highly competitive leagues, showcasing a style of play that was often faster, more improvisational, and filled with a dazzling array of characters. Teams like the Homestead Grays, the Pittsburgh Crawfords, and the Kansas City Monarchs became sources of immense pride and entertainment for black communities across the country. The Negro Leagues were not merely a response to segregation. They were a cultural phenomenon in their own right, a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of a marginalized people. Players like Satchel Paige, the legendary pitcher with an arm of rubber and an unmatched repertoire of pitches, transcended the color line with his charisma and otherworldly talent. Stories of his exploits, often embellished and passed down through oral tradition, became folklore, Josh Gibson, the powerful catcher often called the Black Babe Ruth, was renowned for his colossal home runs, his power rivaling and perhaps even exceeding that of his white counterpart. Cool Papa Bell, a blur of speed on the base paths, was said to be so fast he could turn off the light and be in bed before the room got dark. These were not just baseball players. They were artists, entertainers, and cultural ambassadors, creating a rich tapestry of baseball history that remained largely unknown to white America. The challenges faced by Negro League players were immense: grueling travel on segregated buses, substandard accommodations, and constant financial insecurity. Yet they played with passion and skill, creating a legacy that would later prove pivotal in the fight for integration. Their existence was a powerful, unspoken indictment of the racial prejudice that defined American society. The documentary emphasizes the importance of preserving these stories, many of them captured through the invaluable interviews with former Negro Leaguers like Buck O'Neil, whose eloquent and heartfelt recollections provide a vivid window into this forgotten era. O'Neil, a former player and manager, became one of the most beloved voices in the film, his gentle wisdom and deep love for the game illuminating the profound injustice and extraordinary talent of the Negro Leagues. As the decade ended, the storm clouds of war gathered on the horizon. Baseball, having weathered the economic depression, now faced an even greater challenge: the mobilization of the nation for a global conflict. Many of its stars, from DiMaggio to Ted Williams, would soon trade their uniforms for military fatigues, leaving the game to play a different, more somber role in the national consciousness. The question of whether baseball could continue and what form it would take hung heavy in the air. But the resilience shown during the Depression and the vibrant, if segregated, world of the Negro Leagues suggested that the game possessed an enduring power to adapt, to inspire, and to reflect the complexities of the American experience, even in its darkest hours. The onset of World War II cast a long and somber shadow across American life, and baseball, so deeply intertwined with the nation's identity, was profoundly affected. Many of its greatest stars, embodying a sense of patriotic duty, traded their bats and gloves for military uniforms, joining millions of other Americans in the fight overseas. Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, Bob Feller, and countless others left the diamond for the battlefield, creating a void that raised serious questions about the future of professional baseball. Could the game continue without its marquee players? President Franklin D. Roosevelt's Green Light Letter in 1942 provided the answer. Recognizing the vital role of baseball in maintaining public morale and providing a much-needed sense of normalcy and continuity amidst the anxieties of war, Roosevelt encouraged the continuation of the game. He understood that baseball was more than just a sport. It was a symbol of American life, a daily ritual that could offer comfort and diversion during unimaginably difficult times. The major leagues, albeit with rosters depleted by military service, pressed on, featuring older players, younger prospects, and those deemed unfit for combat. Teams became hubs of community spirit, organizing war bond drives and entertaining soldiers. Women also stepped up to the plate, quite literally, with the formation of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, an inspiring testament to female athleticism and a vital part of the war effort, providing entertainment and a sense of routine during a time of national crisis. As the war drew to a close and soldiers began returning home, a profound shift was already underway, largely thanks to the groundwork laid during the conflict. The racial prejudices that had long defined American society, and by extension, American baseball, were increasingly being challenged. Black soldiers had fought and died for a country that denied them basic rights at home, and the hypocrisy of segregation became glaringly apparent. The success and undeniable talent of the Negro Leagues, flourishing in their parallel universe, made the argument for integration increasingly irrefutable. The man who would finally shatter baseball's infamous color barrier was Branch Rickey, the president and general manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Rickey was a complex figure, shrewd, deeply religious, and driven by a strong moral compass, but also fiercely competitive and keenly aware of the financial advantages that would come from tapping into the vast talent pool of black players. After extensive scouting and careful consideration, Rickey famously selected Jackie Robinson to be the pioneer. It was a decision that would not only change baseball, but would send ripples throughout American society, becoming a crucial precursor to the civil rights movement. Robinson himself was a carefully chosen pioneer. He possessed not only extraordinary athletic ability and a competitive fire, but also the immense strength of character, discipline, and moral fortitude necessary to withstand the unimaginable pressures he would face. Rickey extracted a promise from Robinson. For the first few years, he would not retaliate against the racist taunts, slurs, and aggressive play that he was guaranteed to endure. This turn-the-other-cheek strategy was agonizing for Robinson, a man of immense pride and courage, but it was deemed essential for the success of the experiment. In 1946, Robinson began his journey with the Montreal Royals, the Dodgers' top minor league affiliate, and in 1947 he stepped onto the field for the Brooklyn Dodgers at Ebbets Field, forever breaking baseball's color line. The initial reaction was brutal. He faced relentless verbal abuse from opposing players, managers, and even some teammates. Pitchers threw at his head, opponents tried to spike him, and fans hurled racist epithets. Yet Robinson, with extraordinary self-control and dignity, persevered. His quiet courage, combined with his electrifying play, his aggressive base-running, his clutch hitting, and his brilliant defense, began to win over skeptics and earn the respect of teammates and opponents alike. The support of teammates like Pee Wee Reese, the Dodgers' captain and shortstop, who famously put his arm around Robinson on the field in Cincinnati to silence a jeering crowd, was crucial. Reese's simple act of solidarity spoke volumes, signaling to the world that Robinson was one of them. Robinson's breaking of the color barrier was not merely a symbolic act. It opened the floodgates for a wave of talented black players from the Negro Leagues to finally enter Major League Baseball, fundamentally transforming the game's landscape. Players like Larry Doby, who integrated the American League shortly after Robinson, and Roy Campanella, Don Newcombe, and Monty Irvin soon followed, demonstrating the immense talent that had been unfairly suppressed for so long. The integration of baseball was a watershed moment, a powerful demonstration that progress was possible, and it provided a vital boost to the nascent civil rights movement, demonstrating the power of organized institutions to enact meaningful social change. The game was finally beginning to live up to its promise as America's game for all Americans. The integration of Major League Baseball, spearheaded by Jackie Robinson, ushered in a dynamic new era for the sport, profoundly changing its demographics, its style of play, and its very essence. The period from the 1950s into the 1960s was a time of immense cultural and social transformation in America, and baseball, as always, both reflected and influenced these shifts. The influx of Black and Latino talent, long excluded from the sport's highest echelons, created a new generation of superstars and revitalized the game with speed, power, and unparalleled athleticism. The New York City teams, the Yankees, Giants, and Dodgers, dominated the narrative of the 1950s, creating an unparalleled golden age of baseball rivalries. The Yankees, with their seemingly endless supply of talent, continued their dynasty, led by the stoic brilliance of Joe DiMaggio and then the powerful grace of Mickey Mantle. Mantle, a switch-hitting phenomenon from Oklahoma, became the face of the Bronx Bombers, embodying a new kind of raw, explosive power that captivated fans. His legendary home runs and prodigious talent made him a hero to millions, even as he battled injuries and personal demons. Across town, the Brooklyn Dodgers, now famously integrated, became Dem Bums, a beloved, gritty team whose annual battles with the Yankees in the World Series defined an entire decade. With Jackie Robinson leading the charge alongside Roy Campanella, Duke Snider, Pee Wee Reese, and Gil Hodges, the Dodgers epitomized a passionate, working-class team that captured the hearts of Brooklyn. Their singular World Series victory over the Yankees in 1955, after years of heartbreaking near misses, was a moment of transcendent joy for an entire borough. Meanwhile, the New York Giants, fueled by the breathtaking all-around brilliance of Willie Mays, added another layer to the city's baseball supremacy. Mays, with his infectious joy for the game and his legendary basket catch, was an electrifying presence, an embodiment of pure athletic genius. The rivalry between Mays, Mantle, and DiMaggio, three iconic center fielders playing in the same city, became a celebrated aspect of baseball lore, a perpetual debate among fans about who was truly the greatest. However, this golden age of New York baseball was tragically short-lived. In a move that shocked the baseball world and broke the hearts of millions of loyal fans, both the Dodgers and the Giants announced their relocation to California in 1958. The Dodgers moved to Los Angeles and the Giants to San Francisco, marking a seismic shift in the game's geography. It was a move driven by economic imperatives, the allure of new markets, larger stadiums, and greater financial returns, but it left an indelible scar on the soul of New York baseball and symbolized the relentless march of modernization and commercialization within the sport. The departure of these two storied franchises was a painful reminder that even the most beloved traditions could be sacrificed for profit, a recurring tension that would continue to shape baseball's future. The 1960s brought further transformations. While the focus remained on powerful hitters like Mantle, the era also saw the resurgence of dominant pitching. Sandy Koufax, the left-handed phenom for the Los Angeles Dodgers, became a legendary figure. His unhittable fastball and devastating curveball making him one of the most feared pitchers in history, achieving an unprecedented level of dominance before his career was cut short by injury. Bob Gibson of the St. Louis Cardinals, with his intimidating presence and ferocious competitive drive, was another pitching titan, a symbol of the new generation of powerful African-American athletes excelling in the integrated game. These pitchers, with their ability to control games and stifle opposing lineups, brought a new strategic dimension to the sport, pushing back against the home run explosion of the previous era. Expansion also became a major theme, as Major League Baseball added new teams in burgeoning markets across the country, further extending its reach beyond its traditional East Coast strongholds. This expansion, while a sign of growth, also diluted the talent pool somewhat and challenged the traditional structures of the game. Simultaneously, labor issues began to simmer once more. Players, increasingly aware of their value and chafing under the restrictive reserve clause, began to organize more effectively. The seeds of future collective bargaining and the fight for free agency were being sown, setting the stage for a dramatic confrontation between players and owners that would redefine the economic landscape of the sport. The innocence of the post-war era was fading, replaced by a more complex, often contentious relationship between the game's various stakeholders. As the decade of civil rights and social upheaval drew to a close, baseball found itself at a crossroads, its past glory providing a framework for understanding its evolving present and uncertain future. The tumultuous backdrop of the late 1960s and 1970s, marked by social upheaval, war, and cultural shifts, found its reflection in baseball. The game, once a seemingly immutable symbol of American stability, now grappled with its own internal conflicts and the growing pains of modernization. This era saw the continued integration of the game, bringing forth a new generation of diverse stars, but it was also characterized by escalating labor disputes, a changing economic landscape, and the emergence of free agency, forever altering the fundamental relationship between players and owners. The civil rights movement, while making significant strides, continued to expose deep-seated inequalities, and baseball, having taken a leading role in integration, nonetheless faced its own challenges in achieving true equity. Figures like Roberto Clemente, the iconic Puerto Rican outfielder for the Pittsburgh Pirates, emerged not only as a transcendent talent but as a powerful advocate for Latino players, fighting for recognition, fair treatment, and respect. Clemente's dazzling play, his cannon arm, and his humanitarian spirit made him a global hero, and his tragic death in a plane crash while delivering aid to earthquake victims in Nicaragua cemented his legend. transcending the boundaries of the sport. He was a symbol of the game's growing international reach and its capacity to produce heroes whose impact extended far beyond the diamond. As the decade wore on, the simmering tensions between players and owners boiled over. The reserve clause, which had bound players to their teams for nearly a century, became the central point of contention. Players, increasingly aware of the immense revenues generated by the game, felt they were being unfairly exploited, denied control over their own careers and earning potential. Marvin Miller, the shrewd and tenacious executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association (MLBPA), emerged as a formidable champion for player rights. Under his leadership, the union became a powerful force, challenging the owners' long-held dominance. The landmark arbitration decision in 1975, involving pitchers Andy Messersmith and Dave McNally, finally dismantled the reserve clause, ushering in the era of free agency. This was a revolutionary shift, fundamentally changing the economics of baseball. Players could now negotiate with multiple teams after a certain period of service, leading to soaring salaries and a dynamic new player movement. While celebrated by players as a victory for their rights, free agency also introduced new challenges, including concerns about competitive balance and the potential for a widening gap between rich and poor teams. Owners, initially resistant, eventually adapted, but the era of unquestioned employer control was over. On the field, the game continued to evolve. The American League introduced the designated hitter rule in 1973, a controversial innovation that forever altered the strategic dynamics of the junior circuit, allowing teams to use a specialized hitter in place of the pitcher. While some purists decried it as an affront to traditional baseball, the DH added a new element of offensive firepower and became a fixture of the American League. The rise of iconic sluggers like Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, known for his clutch hitting in the postseason, and the continued brilliance of veterans like Hank Aaron, who surpassed Babe Ruth's legendary home run record in 1974 amidst a backdrop of racist threats, provided compelling narratives and highlighted the enduring power of individual achievement within the game. Aaron's quiet dignity and relentless pursuit of excellence made his record-breaking home run a moment of profound historical significance, overcoming not just a baseball record, but decades of racial prejudice. The game also saw increased commercialization and a growing emphasis on television. Monday Night Baseball and the proliferation of televised games brought baseball into more homes than ever before, expanding its audience but also changing the way fans consumed the sport. The intimate experience of the ballpark was increasingly supplemented, and in some cases replaced, by the broader reach of broadcast media. As the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, baseball, while still America's pastime, found itself navigating a complex modern world, facing challenges from rival sports, a more demanding fan base, and the ever-present tension between its storied traditions and the relentless push of progress and profit. The game was no longer simply a game. It was a multi-billion-dollar industry, and its future would be shaped by these evolving forces. The final inning of Ken Burns's original baseball documentary plunges viewers into the latter part of the 20th century, a period of escalating salaries, labor strife, and a growing disconnect between the game's idealized past and its increasingly commercialized present. The era, roughly spanning the 1980s and early 1990s, saw baseball grappling with its identity amidst widespread social changes and increasing competition from other sports and entertainment options. The free agency era, which had dawned in the mid-1970s, fully matured, leading to an explosion in player salaries and a new dynamic in team building. Superstars became millionaires, and the financial stakes of the game reached unprecedented heights. This newfound economic power for players, however, came with its own set of challenges, exacerbating the already contentious relationship between players and owners. The 1981 players' strike, which prematurely ended half a season, was a stark illustration of the deep divisions that had emerged. It was a painful interruption for fans and a clear sign that the business of baseball was increasingly overshadowing the purity of the game. Further labor disruptions, including a notorious owners' collusion scandal in the mid-1980s, where owners secretly agreed not to sign free agents, further eroded trust and highlighted the cynical, often adversarial, nature of baseball's labor relations. Despite the boardroom battles, the field continued to produce compelling stories and indelible moments. The 1980s saw the rise of iconic teams and individual performances. The high-octane offense of the Bash brothers, Jose Canseco and Mark McGwire, for the Oakland Athletics, brought a new level of power and excitement, even as questions about performance-enhancing drugs would later cast a shadow over their era. Pitching aces like Roger Clemens and Nolan Ryan continued to dominate, showcasing the timeless artistry of the mound. Ryan, with his seemingly ageless fastball and record-setting strikeout numbers, became a symbol of individual longevity and enduring excellence. The World Series continued to provide annual drama, with moments like Kirk Gibson's improbable walk-off home run in the 1988 World Series for the underdog Los Angeles Dodgers, a testament to the unpredictable magic of the postseason. The documentary also touches upon the personal struggles and triumphs of players like Darryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden of the New York Mets, whose immense talents were often overshadowed by personal challenges and the pressures of superstardom. These narratives underscored the human element of the game, revealing that even heroes are not immune to the complexities of life off the field. Throughout this period, baseball also continued to expand its reach, with new teams and divisions reflecting demographic shifts and the growth of the sport across the country. However, the connection to its historical roots, and particularly the Negro Leagues, remained a crucial theme for Burns. The film features Buck O'Neil extensively in this final inning, as his reflections on the past provide a poignant contrast to the modern game. His deep wisdom and unwavering love for baseball, despite the injustices he and his peers faced, serve as a moral anchor, reminding viewers of the game's capacity for both profound beauty and painful hypocrisy. O'Neill's storytelling, filled with humor and grace, connects the seemingly disparate eras, emphasizing the unbroken chain of talent and passion that has always flowed through baseball, regardless of the color line. As the original series concludes, it confronts the looming uncertainty of the 1994 players' strike, an unprecedented work stoppage that canceled the World Series for the first time in 90 years. This deeply disappointing event left fans disillusioned and raised serious questions about the future of the game. Burns uses this moment to reflect on baseball's enduring power, despite its flaws and internal battles. He posits that even in its moments of crisis, baseball continues to hold a unique place in the American psyche, a reservoir of collective memory and a symbol of both our aspirations and our imperfections. The film leaves viewers with a sense of hopeful resilience, suggesting that while the game may bend, it will not break, and its fundamental appeal will continue to resonate for generations to come. It's a testament to the belief that baseball, with its inherent drama, its timeless rituals, and its ability to reflect the human condition, will always find a way to endure. The 10th inning of Ken Burns's baseball, released in 2010, serves as a vital update to the original 9-part series, navigating the turbulent waters of the late 20th and early 21st centuries. This 2-part extension grapples with some of the most profound challenges and transformations the game has ever faced, from the lingering fallout of labor unrest to the explosive controversies of performance-enhancing drugs, all while celebrating new heroes and the game's enduring capacity for drama and redemption. The disappointment of the 1994 players' strike, which had so abruptly concluded the original series, hung heavy over the game in the mid-1990s. Fan alienation was palpable, and baseball faced a crisis of relevance. The sport desperately needed a jolt, a reason for America to fall back in love with its pastime. That spark arrived in 1998 with the epic home run chase between Mark McGwire of the St. Louis Cardinals and Sammy Sosa of the Chicago Cubs. Their relentless pursuit of Roger Maris's single-season home run record electrified the nation, bringing fans back to ballparks and reigniting a passion for the long ball. Every swing, every home run became a national event, a captivating narrative that transcended individual team loyalties. It was a season of unbridled joy and a powerful testament to baseball's ability to captivate and inspire. However, the euphoria of the home run chase would soon be overshadowed by the darkest cloud to descend upon baseball in decades, the steroid era. Whispers and suspicions about performance-enhancing drugs had circulated for years, but the revelations, investigations, and confessions that followed exposed a widespread doping problem that deeply compromised the integrity of the game and tainted the achievements of many of its biggest stars. The very heroes who had saved baseball were now implicated in its greatest scandal. Figures like Barry Bonds, whose pursuit and eventual breaking of the all-time home run record was met with a mixture of awe and cynicism, became central figures in this morally complex narrative. The documentary unflinchingly examines the ethical dilemmas, the cover-ups, and the profound sense of betrayal felt by fans and purists alike. It grapples with the question of how to reconcile the incredible feats on the field with the illicit means by which some were achieved. Beyond the controversies, the 10th inning also chronicles the continued evolution of the game, particularly its increasing globalization. Players from Latin America and Asia, building on the legacy of pioneers like Roberto Clemente, became dominant forces in Major League Baseball, bringing new styles of play, diverse cultural perspectives, and expanding the game's international appeal. Icons like Pedro Martinez, Ichiro Suzuki, and Albert Pujols demonstrated the universal language of baseball and showcased the incredible talent pool that had long existed beyond American borders. The documentary highlights the growing interconnectedness of the baseball world, reflecting broader global trends. The documentary also delves into the resilience of cities and communities, particularly after the tragedy of 9/11. Baseball, once again, offered a sense of solace and unity in a time of profound national grief. The New York Yankees and their improbable run to the World Series in 2001, just weeks after the attacks, became a powerful symbol of New York's defiant spirit and America's enduring resilience. The game's capacity to bring people together, to provide a shared emotional experience, was once again on full display, reminding viewers of its unique role in the national fabric. The 10th inning also explores the evolving fan experience, the rise of sports media, and the ongoing tension between tradition and innovation. It acknowledges the changing demographics of the fan base, the impact of advanced statistics, and the continuous search for the next generation of heroes. Through it all, Burns maintains his signature style, using archival footage, compelling interviews, and evocative music to weave a narrative that is both historical and deeply personal. He returns to the voices that anchored the original series, including the ever-insightful Buck O'Neil, whose continued wisdom and love for the game provide a continuity that transcends the decades. Ultimately, the 10th inning leaves viewers with a complex, yet hopeful understanding of baseball's place in modern America. It acknowledges the game's imperfections, its struggles with labor, drugs, and the relentless pursuit of profit. But it also celebrates its enduring magic, its capacity for heroism, its ability to reflect the best and worst of the human spirit, and its unique power to heal, unite, and captivate across generations. It's a testament to the idea that despite all its trials, baseball remains a profoundly American institution, a living history constantly being written on the diamond. Ken Burns's baseball is far more than a simple historical account of a sport. It is a profound meditation on the American character itself. Through its sprawling narrative, the series masterfully demonstrates how baseball has served as a consistent, if imperfect, mirror reflecting the nation's triumphs, struggles, and evolving identity. From the game's humble, myth-shrouded origins to its role in transcending racial barriers, enduring economic depressions, and navigating the complexities of modern commercialism, Burns reveals baseball as an enduring metaphor for the American experiment. The documentary's lasting impact lies not just in its meticulous chronicling of legendary players and pivotal moments, but in its eloquent portrayal of baseball as a shared cultural language, a source of collective memory, and a perennial symbol of hope and resilience, reminding us that even amidst controversy and change, the diamond remains a sacred space where the past, present, and future of America continue to play out.